Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of January 28th, 2001 is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and the health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted publicly and virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV channel 6 and is being streamed online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, that's 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by visiting our city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of the decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The appeal application is also available online. Please contact the case planner. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Caro Munoz.
Yes.
Board Member Francesca Smith. Board Member Art Simonian, thank you.
Present.
And Chair Christopher Welch.
Present.
Thank you. Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the January 28th, 2001 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the city's website and on the bulletin board on January 25th, 2021. Approval of minutes is next. We would like to announce that the minutes from the October 22nd meeting are still going to be continued to the next Design Review Board date. And we do have approval of Design Review Board minutes from January 14th, 2021. Are there any comments or corrections? And if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I have a quick comment. I noticed that for 1580 Glenmore, the conditions seem to conflict with each other, conditions 1 and 2. Did anyone else notice that? Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
All right,
Anyone?
I'm sorry. Ms. Smith, which conditions are you referring to?
I move to approve the minutes.
Conditions 1 and 2. Sorry. Pardon me. Conditions 1 and 2 seem to disagree with one another. One has to do with setting back the second story, but it also calls for the not having decks on the second story. And condition 2 talks about decks in the second story. So those two disagree with each other.
All right. Ms. Smith, if you don't mind, what we would like to do is to move the approval of the minutes to the end of the meeting so that we can look into it and have an answer for you. Is the board acceptable with that? Thank you. So we will move the minutes to later in the evening. Next up, we have oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication callers to my knowledge. So the next item on the agenda is board and commission member comments. Are there any comments? If not, we will then go to the old business.
Okay, so let's start with item number 6A on the agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to share my screen. Let me get set up for me a couple seconds. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Next item before you is located at 2760 Hermosa Avenue. The request is to demolish an existing single-family dwelling, as well as a detached garage, and to construct a new 3-story, 5-unit multifamily dwelling with a 14-space semi-subterranean garage. The project is generally located in the Verdugo City neighborhood. It's located on the southeast corner of La Crescenta and Hermosa. It's approximately 7,200 square feet. The topography generally has a gentle slope that flows downwards from the northern portions of the lot to the southern section or portion of the lot. As you can see here, it's zoned R1650 and it's surrounded by other multifamily zones with commercial zones to the south. There are 2 mature oak trees on the property, which I'll further go into detail on later slides. This slide here is photographs of the property. Outlined in red is looking from Hermosa Avenue. Outlined in blue is looking in the southeast direction from the corner of La Crescenta and Hermosa. And outlined in green or shaded in green is looking from La Crescenta. The project will be configured with code compliant setbacks at all 3 levels. As you can see from here, the building or the footprint follows the triangular shape of the lot. As mentioned before in previous slides, in the previous slide, there are 2 oak trees on the property, which number 4 will be removed to accommodate the footprint of the building. Tree number 7 will be preserved. As you can see, the footprint is avoiding the critical root zones of this tree. Urban Forestry has reviewed this project and it implemented preservation measures prior to construction via an indigenous tree permit, as well as a 2-to-1 mitigation tree replacement for the loss of tree number 4. This slide here is of the subterranean garage. As you can see, the number 4, the loss of this tree will accommodate the placement of this, the garage below. And as you can see here, outlined of the subterranean garage. It avoids critical root zones of tree number 7. And as you can see, that's the cause of the non-conventional design of the garage. This slide here is of the elevations of the property. The top one being from Hermosa. The proposed building will be similar in height and story with the immediate neighborhood. The upper floors, for the most part, will be set back from the ground levels below. And the sides and elevations are well articulated and it's well designed. With the removal of tree number 7, outlined in yellow here, a deeper landscape front yard setback is provided, and it further reduces the building's mass viewed from Hermosa Drive. On the lower portion of the slide, this is the elevation from La Crescenta. This here avoids a long, continuous, unarticulated building wall. We feel that staff, with the design articulations, it's appropriate for the surrounding context. And this slide here is of the elevations of the interior elevations. And once again, it includes various breaks, volumes, and changer planes, which adds appeal to the project. This slide here is of the roof and 3rd story. Shaded in yellow are the rooftop decks above each of the 5 units. Now, this project was advertised as a 3-story building. However, there's going to be there are no bedrooms up on the 3rd floor. Outlined in blue, these are the stairwells that rise above the 2nd floor, which provides access onto the rooftop decks shaded in yellow. And so once again, since the stairwells are technically 4 areas, this is the 3rd floor of the building. And moving back to the elevations and just kind of demonstrating what I was speaking about on the roof plan. Once again, yellow is the rooftop deck with a wooden trellis, and then outlined in blue or shaded in blue are the stairwells, which is technically the 3rd story of the building. Overall, the project includes quality materials that complement the Spanish-style building, which will include smooth cement plaster, two-piece mission tiles, fiberglass windows, tile scuppers, tile vents, metal gutters with 3-inch round spouts. The windows will be quality of recessed fiberglass nail-on windows with casement and fixed operations with a dark bronze finish. Staff has recommended a condition for that prior to plan check submittal, cut sheets for the pre-finished EFIS elements throughout the project are provided so staff can review for the quality or the EFIS material. Pardon me here, there's a little bit of delay. This is the landscape plan for the property. Oops. Pardon me here, my computer's lagging. Once again, this is the landscape plan here. Overall, the landscape, the property will be re-landscaped with a variety of California-friendly trees, shrubs, and ground cover, which will include Western rosebud, toyon, blue hibiscus, rosemary, and California blue fescue throughout the site. As I mentioned before, for the loss of tree number 4 outlined in red on this slide here, the urban forester is requiring a replacement of 2-to-1 ratio of coast live oaks on the site. The green shaded trees there are 5 proposed trees. Instead of 2, the applicant's actually proposing 5 replacement trees throughout the property. A condition is implemented that a indigenous tree permit approval is required by the Urban Forestry Division to review, to implement tree mitigations for construction to preserve tree number 7, which has that kind of a brownish color, as well as to review the location and placement of the replacement trees throughout the property. Overall, staff recommends approval with 2 conditions for this project. One is submit the cut sheets for the pre-finished EFIS elements for staff's review prior to permit issuance. And number 2, an approval of indigenous tree permit by the urban forester is required to incorporate tree protection measures to preserve tree number 7 during construction, as well as review placement of the California coast live oaks throughout the property. Overall, 5 objection letters have been, pardon me, 5 objection letters have been submitted and have been routed to the board. Pardon me here. Once again, 5 objection letters have been received and was routed to the board. Just to give you a highlight of those concerns were the loss of the tree, the overall building height and mass and scale, the building being 7 times larger than the existing single-family residence, concerns of circulation onto and off the property, trash location, the planting shrub design along La Crescenta, construction nuisances, and as well as traffic and parking concerns. As Ms. Zematitis had recently, before we started the meeting, mentioned, a letter was routed to the board, and it was from the Neighborhood Association for Montrose, Verdugo City, Spar Heights. They have a letter of support. However, they are recommending some conditions to the project. And particularly, they had concerns about the fence along the front setback. Number 2 was the mass at the the 3rd story volume on the stairwell as viewed from the street here. I'm going to turn on my pointer, my laser pointer here, and particularly what they're talking about. Sorry, I know my mouse is frozen. Is this volume right here of the stairwell leading to the rooftop deck. One of their suggestions is this can be subtly or slightly set back to help offset that. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Do any of the board members have questions?
This is Board Member Smith. Hi, I'm trying to scroll through my plans, but now having a hard time. Is that sheet L1, Mr. Joe, is that in our packet? The landscape plan? Because I wasn't able to locate it, but my computer is acting up now.
Give me a couple seconds here.
Okay, thanks.
It should be in the roll-up plans, but if it's not, I will definitely email to you folks.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so I think we should move on to the applicant to present his case. Mr. Zarabians, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Or, does he have 10 minutes, actually? 5 minutes, okay. Go ahead, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Welch and the members of the board. My name is Hamlet Zorabians. I'm the project architect. This property before you is it's zoned for multi-family residential, as was mentioned. Based on the zoning ordinances and code sections, the maximum of 7 units can be actually designed on this property as far as the requirements are concerned. So that we are allowed to go 7 units. However, we are proposing 5 units, 5 units on this property. We are preserving the oak tree, and that's a major part of it. That is why we were going to. We are kind of limited as far as where you can actually put the building, because it's a very triangular shaped building. It's very challenging, but at the same time, we were able to preserve oak number 7, as we talked about it, because in the very beginning, we were planning to remove both oak trees, but we had a series of meetings at the job site with a city arborist, and afterwards she made a recommendation to keep that oak if it's all possible, and he made actually that as a condition. So we started looking into it. So we decided to keep that oak tree per the recommendation, and that cost us another unit. So instead of going with a 7 unit, we are actually proposing 5 units. So just to be able to preserve that tree, we had lost another unit there. But as far as the building is concerned, again, according to the code sections, we are allowed to go to 3 stories. But in fact, we have only 2-story residential units on top of the semi-subterranean garage. Because of the steep slope of the, this location, as you have already maybe noticed that the other surrounding multifamily buildings, they also have the first floor garages actually as a whole floor. So the properties that are across from Hermosa, 2 other properties are completely 3-story buildings. There is another building to the left of that, which is on the corner, which is 2 stories above a 10 steps of stairs. Across from La Crescena, also we have multifamily buildings, which are 2.5 stories, counting the garage will be 3 stories. And to the south, as we spoke of, is actually commercial strip of land. This keeping the existing oak tree number 7 has created a very nice landscape buffer, if you will, in a triangle shape, or between the 2 buildings, between our building and the adjacent building, which is going to be very nice. And that area there is used as a common open space for the building itself. According to the code section, again, the maximum FAR for this building being 1 and the lot being 10,200 square feet, we could have actually, maximized it to 10,200 square feet, but we are only proposing 7,200 square feet. According to the code, we can go to maximum 41 building height, but we are only proposing 39 feet. So what I'm bringing up these issues, also fifth point I just want to bring up, is that the location of the entry to the garage will be from the La Crescenta Avenue, where we had the existing, very existing location of the entry to the garage was, which we are only using like 12 foot, 6 inches of opening there to enter our garage. So therefore, we were able to cancel the driveway that is fronting Hermosa, where you cannot actually park at that point, and measuring it is about 24 feet long strip of sidewalk that you cannot actually park there. So we are proposing to close that off and improve the sidewalk. Therefore, looking at it, you can actually put 1 or 2 cars there in the future. So saying all these things, the reason I'm bringing up this point is that all in all, the project is a very moderate scope, if you will. And it doesn't maximize in any respect of it. And we have actually kept every aspect that I touched below the maximum allotment by the zoning and ordinance. The building is very nicely designed as far as the details are concerned. We're going to. It's a project that I really like myself, and I'm very proud of it. I think this is going to be adding to a lot to the area, and not going to the maximizing the building. I think that's going to speak for itself. And I'll be available. By the way, 2 conditions that staff has recommended for the approval of the project, which we all agree, and I agree with those 2 conditions along with so, and that's my conclusive presentation, the 5-minute presentation, and I'll be available for any other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zarabians. I do have a question about the chimneys. I presume that those are not real chimneys, that they're just sort of decorative, but they're not called out on the roof plan. So I just wanted to confirm that those are going to be constructed as part of the result.
Yeah, having the chimney there, it gives a very residential scale and something that the eye can relate to. And we are planning to have them actually chimneys that we will have the vent in them and it goes up. But obviously, based on the current codes, we just have to have a sealed up fireplace. But yes, it's an aesthetic effect that we are providing there. And that's what's going to be happening. And it's not protruding so much from the roof itself. It's 30 inches above the roof level.
Okay. Do any of the other board members have questions for Mr. Zarabians? Yes, Board Member Smith.
Thank you. I have a quick question about the landscaping. What's the material proposed beneath the remaining oak tree?
Well, we cannot landscape underneath, so we're going to have just basically wood barks, wood chips underneath for the oak tree to be able to breathe. Right now, the existing oak tree is kind of suffering from the existing concrete driveway that there is all around it, which is growth and all. But we're going to be having no particular landscaping or ground cover underneath the drip line of the oak tree itself, and no irrigation pipes or anything like that as such, which is indicated in our landscape plans with the irrigation that we have.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Zarabians. So we will move to public comments. Do we have any callers on the matter?
Yes, we actually have 3 callers this evening. The first caller is Ms. Amy Calpin. Ms. Calpin, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board. Ms. Calpin,
Hello.
you're live on the air with the Design. Hello. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Amy Calpin.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So we live across the street and about 2 doors down from this property. So we're going to be impacted by the development and wanted to share our comments. And they sort of cover several different topics. The first one is the tree removals. We were disappointed to read in that arborist report that out of 17 existing trees, it says only 4 street trees will remain. Maybe a decision was made later to keep 1 oak because it looks like that's being saved. But it's disturbing to realize that the attitude is just to scrape the property of the existing trees. You could see in the staff report in the existing photos that there's a very wooded appearance to that lot right now, and it's just going to be denuded. We're also really devastated that either one or both of those mature California native Coast Live oak trees are going to be removed. Those trees have so many benefits. They provide habitat. They cast shade, which regulates hot temperatures. They help decrease air pollution. And they grow so slowly. They should really just be considered as treasures. And, you know, these trees are, who knows, probably 100 years old. So replacing 2 or 4 24-inch box oaks to try to equal a mature oak, it's just not equal. The next topic is the building height. So we understand that that's within height limitations, you know, 2 feet below, but it still seems out of scale for the neighborhood and for the project use. So we know there's a funny way that the elevations are calculated to set the podium level. And the way it was calculated basically means that the subterranean parking is mostly extended above grade. So that overall building height is forced higher, kind of accentuates how big of a building is proposed on that small and irregularly shaped lot. We just think it's going to diminish the quaintness of this neighborhood with such a large structure on that entry corner at Hermosa Avenue. And the third story keeps being mentioned as, oh, it's only roof access, oh, it's only stairs up to some little trellis structures. Basically seems superfluous. That third story doesn't seem very integral to the units themselves, and it's extra height that's going to block our views to the Verdugo Hills to the south. We really love this foothill environment, but we'll be losing visual access to those natural features that we currently enjoy. Moving on to discuss the site plan.
I'm sorry.
The parking layout. Sorry?
I'm sorry, that's all the time for 3 minutes, unless Chair Welch wishes to extend that.
I'll give you one more minute since we didn't tell her that up front, but please try and wrap up your comments as quickly as possible.
Okay, on the site plan, the parking layout doesn't appear functional. We just assume people are going to say, oh, forget this. I'm not even going to try to get in and out of these parking stalls. And they're going to end up parking on Hermosa Avenue, which is already very pressured by not enough off-street parking, and the street width is narrow. So 2 cars can't drive past in opposing directions at the same time when there's parallel parking on both sides of the street. So we'll be adding more cars to be parking on that street. The trash and recycling location doesn't work. There's no vehicular access to it to allow driving up to service that dumpster. Then on the grading plan, the northern portion of the garage wall looks like it does extend into the drip line of the existing oak tree. So if you're trying to save that, that's not good for the health. Also wanted to mention on the landscape plan, there's Cercis occidentalis, which is western redbud, and Heteromeles arbutifolia, which is toyon, as the proposed trees on La Crescenta Avenue. Those are like large shrubs. Those are not trees. Really, true trees with good height and evergreen are needed to modulate the facade.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate the call.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, next caller, please. Phil, you're on mute.
Yes.
Okay.
The next caller is Mr. Michael Dooley. Hello, Mr. Dooley. You are live on air with the Design Review Board.
Hello,
You have
everyone.
3 minutes to address the board.
Okay, thank you. This current house is the last single-story home that exists on that part of the street. Its location on the corner with the front yard and the open space allows for an expansive view of activity and oncoming traffic northbound from La Crescenta, which the proposed building would remove. When this property was sold in 2018, it was actually improved and cleaned up quite a bit and became quite picturesque. It's a welcome sight on the block, and it's sort of the front door to our street, which will be taken away with this building. The clear view of the street not only adds aesthetic appeal, it actually adds to the traffic safety of the neighborhood with the visual to La Crescenta Avenue or Boulevard. With the proposed subterranean garage entrance on La Crescenta, it's going to increase traffic on northbound La Crescenta quite a bit, making it more difficult for those of us that turn right onto Hermosa to do so, since there will be traffic going up into that parking area. The demolition of this current single-family home to where a maximum of 3 or 4 residents could live would increase this to possibly 20 for that property. And like Amy said, this is going to increase traffic on the street and impact us there. And like she said, the traffic on Hermosa, it's already heavy. You can't drive 2 cars going opposite directions on the street at the same time. You have to pull off into a driveway to let the other car by. And this is just going to increase that even further. The impact of construction, of course, since the pandemic started, majority of residents, especially here where we have 6 units, a lot of the residents are working from home. That construction is going to reduce the availability of parking spots at all hours, especially on Hermosa. And if this is approved, the construction crews will add to the demand for parking along Hermosa as well as La Crescenta Boulevard. And the noise, the potential safety hazards and traffic that will be increased for that period are something we just haven't had to deal with the single-family home on that corner. The trees, Amy said more than I can about the trees, and I'm not sure how protected oaks aren't protected, but I guess that could be explained to me further. And we also have to take into account the city resources that are going to be used, increased by 500% from the current number of residents in that space, including the traffic for trash collection, like Amy mentioned also. That's all I have, and thank you for letting me give my comments.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. Okay, next caller, please.
The next caller is Mr. Grant Michaels. Mr. Michaels, you are live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Yes. My name is Grant Michaels. I am the president of the Montrose Verdugo City Spar Heights Neighborhood Association. I would like to go ahead and comment on this project. Overall, we do appreciate the design and how it has worked with the site to come up with a aesthetically pleasing and a design that we think would enhance the neighborhood. We are going to address just our concerns in the short time that we have. Mass and scale is of significant importance to us. And as was mentioned previously in the presentation, the surrounding buildings do present as 3 stories, 2 residential stories above a garage. When you look at the west elevation, this project, you do see the garage, and then you see 3 stories above that. It may fit within the height limits, but we are very sensitive to the mass and scale and how it is presented. If the mass and scale can be shifted around, we would encourage that. We do appreciate that the 3rd-story mass is minimized, moved to the center of the building, and it does seem appropriate. But again, this will present as 3 residential stories above a garage, which is unprecedented in the neighborhood. We do have additional concerns about the open space area of how that security fence would present in a front yard perspective on Hermosa. we do share some of the concerns of how that would work for utility access for the trash and recycling. Would a curb cut be required? As was mentioned by the architect, they're planning to take out the driveway and have space for additional cars. If they are doing that without a driveway, I'm not certain how the recycling and trash would be collected. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank you for listening to our comments, the comments of the Neighborhood Association, and in general, we do support this project, hopefully with conditions and revisions that would make it compatible with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Okay, just to double check, are there any other callers?
No, there are no more callers for this item.
Okay, very good. Mr. Zarabians, we're going to give you 2 minutes if you would like to rebut any of the comments made by the members of the public.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, a few clarifications. First of all, we are providing 2.5 parking spaces for each unit that we have. We are having five units. Besides that, we also provide 1 guest parking within the structure. As far as the openness, that there was a discussion as far as are we going to be able to see, from the corner, if there's a visibility or anything like that. Right now, currently, there is that covers the property line all around. That fence is going to be gone. And our first our front setback, which is going to be our landscape with the new trees, that's going to be giving you another 20 feet wide of strip that comes around and turns around the corner. So that's going to actually clean up all that area there as far as visibility is concerned. As far as trash is concerned, what we have looked at it is that because we are next to the driveway of the neighboring project, and when you go to the sidewalk, there is a place that actually you can have the trash bin brought outside of it, dragged it, and then put it right at the street. And that's how also a lot of trash collection is done. But we are open to any other suggestion if there would be any. We'll be able to accommodate it in any way possible. These were the basically ones I was talking about. But that segment, as far as looking 3 stories from outside, I think they're referring to the overruns of the stair, which the stair is currently has some sort of an enclosure. When you're going there, there's a door, you're opening it up. Although it's kept to the minimum height, but you're going to be seeing it anyway. But we have carefully put it in the central location. And obviously the access to the roof can be done without that. But it was a very convenient way of doing it for the occupants. So,
okay, please wrap up, Mr. Zarabians. Okay,
if that becomes a huge issue at this meeting, we can discuss how we can remove that, and I can actually, by removing it, stair can be left open and with a drainage on top, and that's what we've done before.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will close the public hearing at this point in time and move it over to board member comments. Board member Muniz, would you like to start off to the discussion? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry. Basically, overall, I like the project. I have visited the site area, and I agree that there are buildings surrounding this property that actually appear even more massive or more, number of stories than this one here. And I like the fact that the upslope side of the site or the parking is kind of buried, and it's only visible from the extreme south portion of the building, and only that portion appears to have an extra floor. Again, I like the project overall. It would have been desirable, again, if somehow the roof line of the building would have kind of followed the contour of the ground, and of course it's going to step down as you go from north to south to kind of remove a part of the massiveness or height of the building that is visible from La Crescenta Avenue on the far south portion. That's all my comment.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Smith, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you very much. So in reviewing these, I don't have sheet L1, but at the end of my packet, there are 2 blank sheets, so I'm not sure what happened. I was concerned about the landscaping plan. I see what the design intent is, and I follow it. I do find the design busy but repetitive. If it's going to be Spanish colonial revival or Spanish influence, it lacks quite a bit of subtlety. I noticed that the entrance on the residential street is pretty elaborate and calls a lot of attention to itself. I wanted to recommend that perhaps the architect study the Santa Barbara County Courthouse. It's now the Superior Court. William Muser for inspiration. You'll see a lot of the thickness of the walls is exaggerated by deeply inset windows. The windows are varied sizes, very ununiform. Those are some of the character defining features of that style. I share some of the public's concern with the protected indigenous trees, which are not entirely protected, but I see that there's mitigation and that the trees will be replaced. I noticed that there isn't any recommendation for irrigation for the remaining street trees during construction, and that mitigation is a little bit open-ended, but I would recommend the street trees, that it is ensured that street trees are irrigated during construction. And looking at the multifamily residential and mixed-use design guidelines and seeing that under A, relate buildings to existing context, it says to provide appropriate massing with the surrounding buildings and a human scale, long continuous segments of building walls facing public streets should be avoided. And I do see some pretty long continuous segments of walls facing public streets. Also, number 4 says it's often that such buildings are often larger in size and mass than existing neighboring structures. It says a building may need to be expressed as a series of separate volumes that I think could help break this up a little bit. A variety of architectural strategies can be used to express or break up the massing of a building, including variations in building heights, which I think more of that would be helpful here. Setbacks, stepbacks, recessed volumes, and other strategies to provide a response for the surrounding context. And on the following page, under number 5, it says, new projects can be built larger than the existing development, provided the mass and scale of the new proposal is appropriate and transitions well to the existing context. There's a bullet under that that says design of larger buildings should diminish apparent mass and scale. I do think that this project could benefit from reduction of apparent mass and scale. Absolutely. It should respect the adjacent building context, and there are some large buildings in the area, but there are some smaller ones. I am concerned regarding the grading and construction within 25 feet of the trunk of the oak tree that I'm relieved will remain. It's on sheet A28, both grading and construction within 25 feet, but if the urban forestry department is good with it, I guess I am. The restrained ornamentation, I iterate again, I think would be helpful. I see that the security fence is in the drip line, which I'm not sure how that can be achieved very well without doing some posts. if the design were a little bit simplified, I believe also the second or the third story could be set back farther on the lot than it is, to reduce its apparent mass and help it fit into the neighborhood a little bit. More variety among bays, roof lines, and bay types. I notice a lot of repetition of certain elements. So I think simplifying the form and the design of the entrance arch would absolutely assist with helping this fit in. And the decorative ironwork at the main doors on sheet, it's door K on the schedule, are really ornate and not really very Spanish colonial revival. Overall, minus the changes in trees and so forth, I think this property could do a better job of fitting into the neighborhood and could be successful. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Smith. Board Member Simonian.
Thank you, Chair. I support the project. I think it is well designed. We've already heard from the architect that he is holding back the density. And in addition to that, he is maintaining one of the mature trees on the site. And of course, the one mature oak that is being replaced with 4 or more trees. So I think that is commendable. In regards to the site planning, it is a triangular lot. It's a hard corner. It's a difficult site to integrate a multifamily project into. And so I believe some of the design, layout, site orientation, the undulation of the building, the kind of zigzagging that's occurring is a function of that triangular lot. And I do think the architect was successful in the site planning. I also think, I also appreciate the way the common open space was integrated in and around the existing oak. We've at times seen projects where an applicant just keeps a tree but turns its back on it. In this case, it's being celebrated and will definitely be utilized and provide shade to the common area. And so, hence again, you could tell that thought and effort has gone in to integrate the tree into the design and further to integrate a common open space around a tree. So I appreciate that as well. I do appreciate the rooftop decks. It's a Spanish style. So the architect has done a good job of kind of truncating and coming up with quote unquote a wedding cake style of a design where the private decks are kind of moved to the middle of the deck. And I think that is positive because as the private decks move to the middle, they become less visible from the surrounding streets and neighborhood. So I think that is positive as well. As has been pointed out, you are getting some mass because of the stair towers, but there are some solutions to that if that becomes a major concern of ours. I do have some solutions for that I could suggest. However, insofar as just either keeping a mansard roof or a slanted roof or a pitch roof and having a flat space behind it, as is typically the case where designers and architects will put the HVAC equipment. In this case, it just happens to be a private space, which in today's COVID era of not enough private space is, I think, a wonderful thing. It will make no difference whether that's a private space deck or just common roof. If you take those stair towers away, which again, I have some suggestions if that becomes a sticking point for us. But in general, I do support the project. One thought that I had was we're doing such a good job of keeping the oak tree, of integrating the common open space around it. there is an opportunity, I think, to move the trash area to the subterranean parking, maybe between parking spots 11 and 12. But I'd like to get the architect's opinion on that before, I go any further. I think if there's going to be comments about how do you move the trash from the trash area to the curb, and are you going to, have some sort of a paved area, and how will that affect the tree? I think there's a very easy solution to that of just moving the trash again up against the retaining wall between spots 11 and 12. In regards to the ornamental railings, I think they're well done. I think the architect, as depicted on sheet 6.2, has already recessed the windows, and so I think that that is a good approach. And overall, I support the project.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Simonian. My comments are I like the design. I think that the architect has done a very good job here. I think it is. I personally fully believe it is well integrated into the environment, especially the way that you shaped it around the tree, that you reached a compromise with the city on the preservation of that tree, which is really a lovely double-trunked tree. I think the fact, as Mr. Simone had mentioned, that you've integrated that public space, that common space into it, that's going to be a lovely space. And by preserving that, you've actually pulled the massing and the complete volume of the building away from Hermosa, which I think was the more critical street facade. So I appreciate that. I think moving the garage access onto La Crescenta just makes good sense. So I think that how you have approached the site planning for this is good. And I think that the massing and scale, frankly, are appropriate. I don't think that it is excessively tall. I don't object to the stair towers because you're still keeping within the legal limits. And I think that the way that the stair towers are done, that they've been set back, that they're pulled into the middle of the structure, I think that it actually works particularly well with the design. And frankly, the planning that you've done here, the first floor of the project is actually 2.5 feet below the level of the sidewalk on Hermosa. So it's actually going to be presenting as a little bit below that from the first floor. So I think that is appropriate as well. To echo one of Board Member Simonian's comments, my only real nitpick was about the trash location. If I'm an occupant of this building and I have to come up that lift or I have to climb those stairs and I have to walk by the trash bin every day to reach my front door, I'm not going to like that if it's smelling, and there's a bedroom also with a little Juliet balcony right above it. So anyone who might want to sleep with their doors open is likely to get hit with that as well. So I definitely think that a relocation of the trash to the garage is appropriate. I was actually thinking the exact same thing as Mr. Simonian. Locate it right there in that space between 11 and 12. You've got space there. I don't think that, I know you've got some storage or something above that, but I think that you've got space there to be able to relocate it there. So I think that we should make a condition to relocate that trash down there. I think that the residents will benefit from it, and it'll be a more appropriate location. So with that, I'm, as I said, largely in favor of the project, accepting that one extra condition, which I think we should make. Does anyone have any other further comments that they would like to add?
No, and I could make a motion to approve the project with staff's conditions plus the additional condition as stated by Chairman Welsh, if this is the right time to do so.
Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
All right.
Sorry.
Dennis?
Before, just in regards to the trash, can I make a suggestion with the conditions? So as long as the location is approvable by integrated waste, my fear is they don't agree with it rolling from Hermosa or it coming from La Crescenta, depending on the types of bins and recycle bins that they may require. I just want to caution that just in case if it doesn't work, I don't want to put the architect in the bind. That's all. It's just a recommendation.
Board Member Simonian, are you okay with that friendly amendment? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Munis, I assume you're okay with that as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll continue with roll call. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Board Member Simonian. Roll call. Board Member Minas?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Chair as well?
Yes.
Okay, motion stands approval of 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I guess we move on to new business now. So what is the first item up?
The first item under new business is a case located at 324 West Durand Street. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Azadi to give the staff presentation for a new multifamily residential project.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see it? Yes?
Yes.
Not yet.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Not yet. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Good evening and thank you. This is case number PDR 2017910 for the project site located at 314 through 324 West Durand Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 4-story, 33-unit multifamily residential development. It includes 3 units for very low-income households and a total of 49 parking spaces in a 1-level subterranean garage. The project has already received approval of a density bonus application, and the 2 approved concessions for this project are increased floor area and height. Currently, the project site is located in the R1250 high-density residential zone parking structure overlay, and it's located on the south side of West Durand to the west of an alley. The site is approximately 23,000 square feet and consists of 3 lots with a relatively flat topography. Currently, the site features a parking lot and drive-through queue lane for an existing fast food restaurant built in 1993 that's located across the alley. The fast food restaurant site and the building next door have been approved for development as a 7-story hotel by City Council. As it relates to site planning, the L-shaped building is appropriately sited on the lot, providing appropriate setbacks throughout the building, including a generous setback at the street front, which allows for a large open courtyard at the ground floor. There are also significant setbacks on the 4th floor that allow for a rooftop patio. Access to the subterranean garage will be from a driveway along West Durand. The 4-story, 33-unit project features a combination of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Each unit will also include the code-required balconies. The proposed landscape plan is complementary to the development, with drought-tolerant landscaping used to create functional and usable outdoor spaces. The design also features decorative concrete permeable pavers at the driveway and at all walkways. There are 2 distinct common outdoor spaces for use by the residents. This includes the ground floor landscaped courtyard with outdoor seating and a water feature in the center, as well as a 4th floor rooftop patio that includes outdoor seating and fire pits. While the proposed landscaping complies with the code and the city's design guidelines, staff is recommending a few conditions of approval. They include introducing taller landscaping in front of the perimeter fencing, revising the landscape lighting plan to reduce the amount of fixtures, and to omit the curb at the front property line. Staff is also recommending a detail of the perimeter fence to be submitted for staff review and approval. Overall, the mass and scale of the project is appropriate to the design, concept, and context of the surrounding neighborhood, which features a mix of 1, 2, and 3-story residential development. with larger developments nearby along Central Avenue in the DSP. The overall height of the project is 47 feet and 4 stories, which exceeds the maximum allowable. The proposed FAR is 1.61, which also exceeds the maximum allowable, and these were approved as part of the density bonus. Given the location of the site, which is adjacent to an alley, a soon-to-be-built 7-story hotel, and a 5-story multifamily development across the street, the project's proposed height and massing are not incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The substantial front courtyard and generous setbacks, as well as stepping down of building massing towards adjacent structures, helps to reduce the project's overall mass and scale. The massing is a composition of various offset building forms with different materials and expansive window walls. It also includes projecting and recessed balconies, large stepbacks at upper floors, and varied roof heights, which is especially appropriate along the long facades to break up mass and minimize a big boxy profile. The design features flat roof forms appropriate to the design with varied roof heights. Trellis features are introduced at the building entry and at the 4th floor, at the rooftop patio, and the hallway corridors. Overall, the consistency in the use of colors and materials helps to reinforce the design concept. The neighborhood features a mix of styles, and the proposed design of the new development is appropriate. Located to the rear of the front courtyard, the proposed entryway facing Doran is well defined by its trellis frame and thoughtfully integrated into the design, while also avoiding a sense of monumentality. The doors and windows will be aluminum with a dark gray finish that complements the design. Staff is recommending a condition that a window schedule as well as window details be submitted for staff review and approval. The materials for the new development also include EIFS panels, horizontal siding that is a wood substitute material, metal railings with a cross design that provide differentiation to the horizontal emphasis of the design, and metal beams and fascia. As it relates to public comments, I did not receive any comments from anyone. I did receive one phone call from a gentleman who just had questions about the project and wanted some basic information. Staff is recommending approval of the project with conditions. That concludes my presentation. I'm available if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zadi. Does anyone from the board have any questions? Go ahead, Board Member Simonian.
Yes, I have a question for staff as it relates to the approval of the hotel project. If the hotel project does not come to fruition, how would that affect this project? Because this project is replacing some parking, I would assume, for the fast food restaurant. And so if this project is built, does the Burger King have enough parking on its own to accommodate its own parking needs, or is there some sort of development agreement where they both need to occur concurrently, etc.?
So the Burger King site has actually recently been vacated. So there currently is no longer a restaurant at that location. The parking lot did provide the required parking, or some of it, for that Burger King facility. However, since it's now vacant, if the hotel project were not to move forward, anybody that would come into request a business license or operate at that Burger King site, we would take a look at the proposed use, and if parking is an issue, then they would have to apply for a parking exception or parking reduction permit.
I see. Okay. So in other words, the burden would be placed on the commercial site in the future to basically be able to, one way or another, accommodate its parking needs based on its use.
Correct. There any other questions?
Any other questions? No? Okay. So let's hear from the applicant then. And can everybody please go on mute? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and board members and city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn, and my offices are located here in the city of Glendale. And just to add to Mrs. Adi's presentation, Vista, could you please put up the first image of our PowerPoint? This image is to talk about the context of the area. And this shows our site has already been identified is the parking and queuing area for the previous tenant, which was Burger King. To the north of us is the Altana, which is a 5-story building with mezzanine level. Next to that is a city park, which is Duran Gardens Mini Park. To the south of us, we have 2- and 3-story buildings. To the west of us, we have 2 3-story buildings. And to the east is mentioned about the hotel. It's a 7-story Indigo hotel. And board member Simonian, when you ask about if the hotel didn't get built, the ownership group that is developing this site here this evening is the same group that's developing the hotel. And that hotel is moving forward. In fact, we're in construction documents, hopefully to submit into plan check within the next month, if that helps alleviate any of that concern. Our project is a density bonus housing project. It is including a very low income affordable units. We've been working with housing and planning on that, so we're excited about that piece of it as well. We feel our architect did design a very handsome building. He designed a building with good mass, good scale, functional, usable open space, and we actually think it'll do an upgrade and improvement to the neighborhood. I'm going to conclude my remarks and then turn it over to our architect, and he can walk you through the design a little bit better than I can. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Thank you, Rodney. Just want to touch briefly on overall idea of the design, the shape of the building. We tried to respond to neighborhood as much as we could. It started with looking at the 5-story vertical wall across Doron, and that pushed us to the idea of pulling our building back to try to avoid that vertical corridor effect driving down Doron. That's how that big open courtyard in the front was created. To the east across the alley where the hotel going to be, the hotel also has variable massing, and right across our front courtyard, it'll be a 7-story element, and therefore it's open towards our courtyard. And where we have our 4-story portion, that's where hotel going to have 2-story element with the pool. So we try to relay to that as well. And once we have our open courtyard in the front, it also visually tied up to this Doran mini park across the street. From here, I'd like to touch up on 4 conditions. We try to respond to them briefly, and we'll present this and provide this for staff review. If we can go to the next slide. Vista. Next. Yeah, this is that building that I was referring to, that we tried not to have that on our site. And, can go to the next one, the other side, next. Okay, one of the conditions was to eliminate a curb at our sidewalk. It was a little shadow that resembled the curb. There was no intention putting it there, so we eliminated it. And to clarify, there will be no, yeah, exactly what the pointer is. There will be no curb at the sidewalk. Next, if we can go to the next one. Next. One more. And the next one, I think, is our landscaping. Yeah, this is the landscape lighting. We lessen it per condition number 2. We revised the landscape, and again, we will submit this for staff review. Next will be our detail for the railing. Per staff recommendation, we reduced our fencing. It used to be higher in the front yard. We reduced it down to 30 inches in the front. And this is simple, clean design we see there. And this also will be submitted for your review. And next is the door window schedules, which will show how the windows operate and which are the solid portions. And we're ready to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have questions for the applicant?
I do.
Go ahead.
Hi. I have two, I hope, easy questions. The first is regarding the green wall that's in the materials board.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a photograph. I'm not sure what this proposed green wall would be. So I hope that's an easy question.
If we can go to one of our renderings, probably third or fourth slide. It's actual vertical landscaping. So with drip irrigation, we're gonna have it. We have a driveway entrance to the garage, and we're trying not to have any exposed walls, and it softens that corner right exactly there. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. So I hope that was an easy question. And I saw the window schedule. Thank you very much. What color is the proposed glass?
Glass, just regular glass. There's no tint or color.
Clear. Okay, thank you.
Clear. Mm-hmm.
And if I can, one more question on that same image where you have those planter boxes on the fourth floor, those are going to be incorporated into the design because they were missing from some of the sections. So I just wanted to confirm that those are going to be planters or, raised beds with landscaping in them. Yes?
Absolutely. Decorative planters. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions from board members? Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any public callers for this matter?
No, Chair Welch, we do not have any callers for this item.
Okay, so I guess we don't need to have a rebuttal period then either. So I guess we can move straight into, close the public hearing and move straight into board member comments. Let's see, Board Member Smith, would you like to lead us off?
Sure, thank you very much. I think the design as proposed is really successful. I think it would fit in well. It's good to add more housing, especially affordable. I think it looks really like it would be a successful project. I think the design is well articulated. I'm a little bit concerned about the olive trees in the boxes, that they may not have sufficient planting depth. I see only 29 inches, but I guess that'll be worked out. I'm not normally a fan of wood substitutes, and I think it's pretty successful in this. The proposed 12-foot post light fixtures, the exterior lighting, I don't think that it's that compatible with the overall design. It's such a sleek and lovely contemporary design. I think it would be helpful if they used a more simplified post light fixture rather than the faux craftsman. That was very charming, but it didn't overall fit into their otherwise really well integrated overall design. They're just minute comments of that type. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Board Member Simonian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to, first of all, thank the applicant and the architect for putting a great package together. I mentioned that because it is very detailed in regards to the calculation of impact calculations, in regards to the material board, in regards to the renderings, elevations, etc. I was able to really get a holistic idea of the vision of the design. And I got to say, I support the design. I think it's well thought out. I also appreciate the fact that the architect has mentioned how the design and the massing and the orientation of the common space, etc., has been thought of and integrated and designed around the 7-story hotel that's being proposed next door. I think that's very important. This is a very, I would say, a great opportunity because you have a mini park across the street, and then you have this hotel coming up, and I think this building is going to really add to this area of our city. I think it's really going to be a great addition. In regards to the different materials as proposed, I think it's refreshing. And why I mention this is we've been having a lot of more modern stucco buildings that come our way that have different colors and materials, but they tend to be of a certain style. This is different. This is contemporary. However, it has more traditional materials that are integrated into the design, and I think that's very positive. It has steel and it has kind of brick veneer kind of juxtaposed with one another. It has railings, etc., that match the mini park across the street in regards to its design and aesthetic. So overall, I think it is very successful. It provides affordable housing, which is very much needed. And it is going to be, I think, a very successful project. So I support it with staff's conditions.
Thank you. And Board Member Minas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also like the project. It is a nice design. The mass and appearance is compatible with the surrounding buildings, multi-unit residential buildings, and of course, upcoming hotel. I like the L-shaped type of the building, allowing a very nice courtyard facing Duran, which basically softens the appearance of the complex from the Duran Street. And I like the design, the articulation of the design. It's very, very nice, contemporary, yet appears very, very traditional somehow. I like it and I support it also.
Thank you. And for my comments, I really don't have much to add. I concur with my fellow board members. I like the design. I think it is very well done. I think it is, whoever is still on sound, can mute yourself, please. Thank you. I particularly appreciate the site planning where the building is pulled away from that corner that is so close to all of the other buildings, and it creates that true courtyard effect. So I especially appreciate that, and that living wall. Although, make sure that the irrigation works well on that. Those things are hard to keep alive, but I appreciate the thought of it. So that's really all I have to add. Does anyone have a motion that they'd like to make?
I move to approve the project with staff's conditions as stated.
I second it. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
I seconded it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Roll call vote. Board Member Minas?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Aye.
And Chairperson Welch?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, please.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is a new single, forgive me, it's a new addition located at 15 55 Glenmont. And Ms. Cassandra Pruitt will be giving the staff presentation.
Good evening, board, chair, board members, and members of the public. I'm Cassandra Pruitt. I will be presenting the project. I'm just pulling up the slideshow here. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm presenting the project for 1555 Glenmont. This is a 2-story addition to a 1-story house. The subject site is a 16,950 square foot interior lot located north of Mountain Street, near the northerly terminus of Glenmont Drive on the west side of the street. The site is located in the R1R restricted residential zone, floor area ratio district 2. This zoning allows a 15-foot front setback and a maximum total floor area of approximately 4,700 square feet for this site. The existing house is approximately 3,000 square feet, which is currently consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood. It was built in 1947 and added on to 4 times over the subsequent years. It is 1 story, which is also consistent with the neighborhood pattern, and it has an attached 2-car garage extending from the front facade and facing the street. The existing site layout features a large front yard consistent with the neighborhood pattern and has an undeveloped area between the front building mass and the pool at the rear. The site slopes somewhat at the street front and the rear of the property. At the street front, it slopes upward toward the north and parallel to the street. And the site also slopes up steeply toward the rear of the property behind the existing building pad. The property does not appear to be eligible for historic designation and is not considered a historic resource under the California Environmental Quality Act. These photos show site conditions as viewed from the street and as viewed from the rear of the property. These are some photos showing typical houses in the immediate neighborhood. The proposal under consideration tonight is to add a 2-story, 1,480 square foot addition at the front of the property, extending about 40 feet out from the front facade. The addition includes an attached 1-car garage and a new driveway and additional paving leading to it. It also includes 2 2-story balconies at the front and rear of the addition. The red polygon indicates the location of the addition, and the blue circle is the area where the new driveway and the paving is being added. The proposal maximizes the allowed floor area, resulting in a total floor area double the neighborhood average. According to the comprehensive design guidelines, the best way to incorporate such a significant addition into the existing building and neighborhood context is to set it back on the site into the existing building form. The addition is not set back or incorporated into the existing building form, and its massing and height are accentuated by the fact that it is located on the down-sloping part of the front yard without stepping down with it. Further, the eaves at the first floor are several feet higher than the eaves of the existing house, which further accentuates the height. The addition location also results in removal of a large part of the front yard and removal of 4 mature Chinese elm trees along the southern boundary here. This slide represents a view of the addition from the downslope of the site. Although the new garage door is well located in that it is oriented away from the street, and the new driveway minimizes paving to the degree it connects to the existing driveway, The expanded driveway still results in a front yard that appears overly paved. The design guidelines also require residential driveways to be decoratively paved. A condition has been recommended to utilize decorative paving in the new driveway and to incorporate details into the existing driveway to better relate to the new driveway. The new proposed landscaping in the front yard maintains existing turf without enhancing it. So a condition has been recommended to include a variety of native, low water use plants that complement the building style. This is the first floor plan indicating the existing building to the left and the existing two-car garage at the top. And the first floor addition has the one-car garage here and a new family room. On the second floor, it features 2 bedrooms, a bath, and two balconies. The front balcony is 58 square feet. This is on the second floor, and the rear balcony is 149 square feet. The elevations demonstrate the 28-foot, 6-inch, 2-story addition compared to the existing 1-story. This is the 2-story addition, the existing 1-story, and this is from the rear. As you can see in the front elevation, the total building height is increasing at the top compared to the top of the existing house, but also at the downslope part of the site. This slide shows the left side of the building running along the property at the south, and this is the north side of the building. This is the existing building here, and this is the addition. The applicant has worked with staff to incorporate a number of strong design and detailing features, several of which do act to mitigate the massing and scale. For example, the second story steps back several feet on each side from the first story, and the addition uses a variety of high-quality materials appropriate to the building style, and the massing of the front facade is also broken up by the brick wainscoting. Some of the materials being used are clapboard siding, brick veneer wainscoting, stucco siding, asphalt shingle roofing, iron railing with an appropriate pattern, modest wall-mounted light fixtures, paneled steel garage doors, and bay windows. However, the significant scale of the addition and its placement on the site result in the addition still appearing massive as viewed from the street. Staff recommends the addition be integrated into the existing building form and site footprint, such as by pushing the addition back and over the existing house or behind it. Staff also recommends the mass and scale be reduced, for example, by lowering the first floor level. Regarding windows, the project proposal includes slider windows, which are not appropriate for new construction additions to traditional style houses. A condition is recommended calling for new windows to be recessed, to incorporate sills, and to use either hung or casement operation. Additionally, the existing house has windows that don't comply with the design guidelines and for which no apparent permits are on file. A condition has been recommended to replace the windows to be consistent with the addition, should the board approve it. As a note, several public comments were received and forwarded to the board prior to the hearing. 4 of them were in opposition and 2 were in support. Based on the information just presented, the staff recommendation is return for redesign to better integrate the addition into the existing building form and site, to reduce its mass and scale, to use windows appropriate to the traditional style, to use decorative driveway paving, and to enhance the landscape plan. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt. Do any of the board members have questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we can give the applicant 5 minutes to present their case. I can't hear the applicant speaking. Delia, if you're trying to speak, I can't hear you either.
Oh no, I'm trying to determine is Mr. Callard or Mr. Vardanian the applicant. So who would like to go first, please? 5 minutes and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Surin, we can't hear you if there's anything you can do on your end.
From the body language, it does not look like they even realize they need to be speaking.
I thought I saw Surin's mouth moving, but...
Chair Welsh, this is George Callard, the homeowner. Should I go first while Surin works on the microphone issue?
Yes, why don't you do that, sir? Thank you. And hopefully they can disconnect their device or reconnect it or try another audio device. So thank you. Go ahead, please.
Perfect. I'll speak for 3 minutes. Surin should keep the 5-minute slot. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is George Callard, and my wife and I are the homeowners. Thank you, board members and staff, for your public service to our community. My wife and I have been residents of Glendale since we were married in 2007. We love this city and decided to purchase this home here in 2010. Since embarking on this project almost 2 years ago, 3 things have become even more clear to us. 1, it is very important for us that the design of the addition is both beautiful and aesthetically fitting to our existing home. 2, the pandemic has cemented the need for a room for our aging family in our home. Our parents do have existing health issues. Both Anna and my professions have switched to remote work, and this will continue for the foreseeable future. Hence, our guest bedroom is actively being used as an office. Let me explain our thought process. By creating an upstairs bedroom, bathroom, and adjacent office in the addition, my wife and I have the option of moving into the upstairs space and allowing my mother, who has 2 artificial hips and walks with a cane, to stay in our first floor bedroom. Also, I could stop using the current spare bedroom as an office and allow it to be used for my wife's parents. The second story of the addition would be less than 16% of our entire home. Keeping the first story of the addition level with the existing home's level is also very important considering the mobility issues in our family. We recognize that our lot is a special case. We discussed with our neighbors and worked through iterations and considerations of where to possibly put the structure based on these 4 reasons. First, we love our current house and it would be financially infeasible to knock down large parts of it. Second, adding a structure to the back of the house would cause us to look directly into the yards of our downhill neighbors and interfere with the view of our uphill neighbor. Third, we are in a terraced community and have no sidewalks on our street. The 2 homes across from us are minimally impacted because they are up on a hill and not on the same plane as our home. Fourth, our property edge follows a curve, with our home not visible to those driving up the hill until they reach our property.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. The curve also obscures the addition when driving down the hill from the cul-de-sac. Therefore, by building on the southeast portion of the lot, our addition would be tucked away and have the least impact or disruption to the surrounding homes. Finally, 2 additional items I would like to note are: 1, there are no single hung windows or recessed windows on the property, nor were there any when the property was purchased in 2010. All windows visible from the street are sliders or fixed. And B, the staff report mentioned landscaped yards of our surrounding properties. Ours is actually one of the only landscaped yards you can see. The rest of the properties on Glenmont have sharp upslopes in front, usually with a single plant type covering the hillside, followed by a deep driveway. We would like to keep our existing landscaping of grass and plants as unchanged as possible. Ultimately, we're looking forward to making our home and property work for our current needs and be our ideal forever home. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Okay, Mr. Verdini, you can go now.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, if I may, I have a question for the speaker, Mr. Keller.
Certainly. Go ahead.
Mr. Keller, I just wanted to verify if I heard correctly in that both your parents that are elderly and also your wife's parents that are elderly are all going to be residing in the same house. Is that the intent?
No, I'm glad you both my parents and my wife's parents are not live nearby. My mom actually lives on the East Coast. So there's more to facilitate longer term stays when they do come and visit and stay with us. And if anyone who's had in-laws, it's always better to have a little bit of space as opposed to having your in-laws right on top of you, if you know what I mean.
Okay, thank you. Was there any follow-up to that, Mr. Simonian? You're on mute.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. No, I just wanted to clarify that because I thought I heard earlier that we were going to have both parents, elderly, living together, and so I wanted to clarify that. So I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Verdanian.
Yes, my apologies for the technical difficulties. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the design board and design staff. Thank you for hosting this meeting. My name is Saran Vardanian. I have an office here in Glendale. I would like to start with a little bit of background of this project. We've been working with this design for almost 2 years. There were many iterations and explorations during this process. The design that you see in front of you is a direct result of site conditions, feasibility of construction, considerations of privacy, consideration of aesthetics, and design staff's recommendations. Moving forward, I would like to address the main concerning points of the staff report. So site planning, the addition projecting over 40 feet. This does not really reflect the true perception of the building position. The current house is not parallel to the street, and we're proposing on the biggest portion of the front yard. The addition is set over 13 feet further from the street than the closest part of the existing house. Also, the addition being on the lower side of the slope. Most of the slope rises before the perimeter of the addition, as it does with the current house and with houses in the vicinity. Addressing the issue of privacy by pushing the addition back. With having the addition run along the adjacent two-story house and strategic placement of the windows, we are mitigating privacy concerns with the southern neighbor. Pushing the addition back will position the structure right above the southern neighbor's backyard and would interfere with the northern neighbor. The garage location and driveway, as far as paving on the driveway, the existing driveway is concrete slab with scoring lines, which is common in the neighborhood. And the combination of that paving with a different kind of paving would not be aesthetically pleasing. The landscape design. The removed trees are not protected and only some of them are mature. The homeowner attempts to preserve their front lawn as it is and as many trees as possible. As far as massing and scale, the addition is, it was being said that the addition is prominent. And because of the convex curve of the street, the addition only becomes significantly visible when you are in front of it. As far as the new eaves being several feet higher, the eaves are actually less than 2 feet higher than the existing, and this is not uncommon to see eaves at different heights on ranch-style houses. Building relative to existing topography. We've tested the split level concept but we ran into issues with driveway to the additional garage, drainage, and most importantly, aesthetics. As far as windows, as George has mentioned, this house had this style of windows since its conception, or at least 1995. We have retained all the original materials and details of the existing house and applied them on the addition, including wall finishes, window styles, roof, lighting fixtures, etc. And we introduced some new features that fit the style and can complement the original house. We've positioned the required additional garage with the side access to minimize its impact on the front facade. The second story significantly stepped back from the front and from the sides. It only occupies the fraction of the house perimeter, and the choice of material breaks, hipped roof transitions, balcony, and fenestrations further soften the appearance of the addition. I'd like to again emphasize that any other location of this addition would mean either significant privacy concerns with multiple neighbors or demolition of most of the existing structure, which will inflict extensive financial hardship to the homeowner. Attempting to move the addition into the existing perimeter of the house will push the cost of construction over 50% and require compliance with current building and zoning codes, which would render this project not feasible. To conclude, our addition meets all zoning codes. It also attempts to meet all design criteria of the city. The location of the addition is strictly limited by the position of the existing house, the constructability of the addition, and privacy concerns with multiple neighbors. I would like to thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Do any of the board members have questions for the applicants? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the rest of the public hearing. Do we have callers from the public?
Yes, we have two callers at this time. The first caller is Ms. Catherine Yurka. Ms. Catherine Yurka, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair Welch, members of the DRB. Last week, in relation to another project on Glenmont, in fact, 2 weeks ago, I called in to note that staff reports for properties in hillside areas do not address the particular conditions associated with the Hillside Development Review Policy. After my comments 2 weeks ago, staff noted, somewhat testily, I might add, that they take the Hillside Development Review Policy into account always. Having read the current staff report, I must insist again that they do not. There is no difference in the form that staff fill out for hillside and non-hillside properties, even though there are different rules. The Hillside Development Review Policy is written into the Glendale Municipal Code, and it says, every discretionary decision made by the City Council, along with city boards, commissions, etc., shall take the following into consideration. Development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods in terms of size, scale, bulk mass, roofline orientation, setbacks, and site layout. Nowhere does the staff report or the presentation mention incompatibility of size. Size is not the same thing as massing and scale. Massing and scale are always addressed, no matter where a project is located. Compatibility of size never is, and this case is no different. The current house is already 3,100 square feet, 900 square feet larger than the average. The proposed project would be 4,590 square feet, more than double the neighborhood average, and more than 1,000 square feet larger than the largest house in that area. I have a question that I would be grateful if a DRB member could follow up on. If staff does take the Hillside Development Review Policy into account, why is there no analysis of the total incompatibility of the size of this project? Staff say to reduce mass and scale. Again, not the same thing. They should say, in keeping with Glendale's municipal code, that the property owner needs to reduce the size of this project. Approving a project that is 4,600 square feet when the neighborhood average is 2,282 is just inviting an appeal to council. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Next caller.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Simonian.
I'd like to just take a moment to point out that on page 6 of the staff report, there's determination of compatibility, mass, and scale. And staff has pointed out that the proposed massing and scale are not appropriate to the site and its surrounding for the following reasons. And so I'm a bit confused as to the caller's response because staff has adequately dealt with that. In fact, some of the exact comments as to the return. Confused, and I just wanted to, answer that question that caller pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you for that point of order. Okay, next caller, please.
The next caller is Mr. Shervin Samari. Mr. Samari, you are live on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to chime in about this property. I have seen the renderings and actually live about 50 feet away from this property across the street. And, to me, from what I've seen from the renderings, it looks like it fits within the style of the house. I'm actually, pleased that there is, some updating being done in this neighborhood. I think it's going to, make the rest of the neighborhood, look better. There's, just whenever there's any sort of updating and upgrading of the surrounding area, I think it benefits everyone. I like I said, live across the street. The renderings to me look really nice. It doesn't look overly big or it fits. Everything. They've managed to make the mass feel integrated with the rest of the house. So I just wanted to kind of chime in with my support of what the owner is planning on doing.
Okay, thank you for your call. Appreciate it. Any other callers? Oh, we do have another caller. Okay.
Yes, we do. The next caller is Ms. Erica Patzman. Ms. Erica Patzman, you're live on the air.
Hi, I'm Erica Patzman. I live at 1565. I'm a neighbor directly above this property and directly below 1580 that was just heard 2 weeks ago. And I want to be consistent with what I said about the hillside development review policy in Glendale and the fact that the homes that are being built in our neighborhood should be compatible with what's the terms of this development policy in terms of size, scale, and mass and setbacks. And I don't understand Mr. Simonian's confusion about size, scale, and mass when it specifically states in the Glendale Municipal Code size. So how would you address size? Size means square footage. And this particular property is this applicant or our neighbor is asking to build something that's 115% larger than any of the surrounding homes on our street. And I think that that's based on the code, which is written in plain English. It says size. And then why, in a determination of size, you have to look at the neighborhood survey. I mean, why would you require a neighborhood survey if it doesn't matter? And it specifically shows 12 properties, and the average of all of these 12 properties are 2,282 square feet, when this one is going to be 4,000. I don't know. There seems like there's a different number, but 4,910. So my issue is, why was there nobody in the city to tell them, hey, there's this code, 30.11.04, and which encompasses the Hillside Development Review Policy, which is in addition to the Glendale Design Review Guidelines. And why weren't they told, this property size doesn't fit into our neighborhood. Maybe you should think about reducing the size of it. And, I understand that my neighbors, have spent a lot of time and money, and not to mention the time of the city staff and design review board members to review this project. And also other neighbors that are coming in now and putting their comment. I think, in my opinion, based on the size, this shouldn't even have come up to this point to even be in front of the design review board, that there should be some sort of a checklist when a house is being built in the hillside, that it meets the specific hillside development review policy. I mean, this is codified. I mean, and enacted by the Glendale Municipal Code. It's plainly there. So, I think the city needs to find a solution to this problem to make parties be aware that there is a city policy and this exists in code. And although I haven't really discussed in detail the design with my neighbor about his property, I am concerned about the size. I think it is too big for our neighborhood. But, I'll be honest, if this addition was smaller in size and height, and I probably wouldn't have a problem with it at that location. But this particular creating a 5,000 square foot home or somewhere below that, which is 100% larger than the average size of houses around it, I think it cannot meet the Hillside Development Policy Guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Your time's up, so we appreciate your call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, any other callers? And we have more callers. Okay, next caller.
Yes, the next caller is Ms. Pamela Sellers. Ms. Sellers, you're live on the air with the Designer Viewboard. Ms. Sellers, you're live on the air with the Designer Viewboard. If you don't mind turning down your television or computer. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Pamela Sellers. I live at 1592 Glenmont Drive, which is... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Apologies, you're going to have to turn down either your computer or your television, please.
I am objecting to this project. I think it should be denied entirely. I agree with much of what the design analysis said, but I'm concerned that the Glendale laws and guidelines, which were enacted specifically to, quote, ensure compatibility with surrounding development in terms of size, scale, bulk, mass, roof line orientation, setbacks, and site layout, are not being followed with this project. In simple terms, it's too tall and it's too big. I wrote a written comments, which you have, and I would like you to take a look at those. But in summary, this project it's in the middle of the block. It would change the character of the neighborhood of one-story setback homes. The Hillside guidelines were meant in part to stop the McMansionization of Glendale. We've seen how that has ruined so many neighborhoods. Once new, larger homes are built in the old neighborhoods, the neighborhood loses its character, and this project is just too big for the neighborhood. So I would hope that you would deny it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call. Are there any other callers?
There are no other callers at this time.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Vardinia, we'll give you 2 minutes to answer comments made by the public.
Yes, thank you. I would like to address first the first caller, I believe, Kathleen Gorka. I've noticed that she was also on the call at the last board meeting, and it seems like she's following some kind of an agenda, and so I can't really comment on that if it's an agenda driven. And I would like to comment the other two callers, which have concerns with size and square footage. The city is growing. We've seen the city growing in the downtown area, massive buildings being built. Cities do grow and the needs change. So the homeowners and people in general these days often need much more space because of a much more program that it is required. And I wanted to emphasize that the house still complies with the zoning code as far as square footage is. It complies with height restrictions that are set by the zoning code. And I would also like to point out for the third speaker, the next door neighbor, if this house was, if the addition was pushed back based on the recommendations of the of the staff. That would mean the addition would be right in front of them. It would block their view, and it would create privacy issues for them as well. With that being said, I have no further comments.
Okay, very good. Before I close the public hearing, do any board members have any remaining open questions? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move to board member comments. Mr. Simonian, it is your turn to go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank the public for taking the time to call in and share their opinions, and also for staff putting I think a good project forward from an analyzing point of view. I think staff has done a very good job analyzing the pros and the cons of the project. And after reviewing staff's report, coupled with the drawings, I got a very good sense of the mass and the scale and what was being proposed. So I just wanted to point that out as I interjected earlier as well. I'm going to start off with what I think are some positive things about the project, and then I'm going to couple that with some items that, of course, I think could certainly help the project and reduce the mass and the scale. In regards to the overall design language and selection of materials, I think it is well done. When you look at sheet A900, for example, and I must just say, I really appreciate the renderings, the diagrams, the way the designer has portrayed and depicted where the mass will occur on the site, and the photo renderings, I think, do a very good job of allowing us to visualize the design intent. So as I look at sheet A900, the overall materials, colors, I think are well done. I think, it works, it looks, and if you just kind of get rid of the second floor over the new addition, you couldn't really tell if this was an addition or not. So, and again, if you just get rid of the second floor, if you just look at the kind of brick building base, if you look at the colors and the moldings, etc., it I think blends quite nicely. Two images are depicted on sheet A900 on the top left and on the top right, and depending on your vantage point, as to looking at it from the slope as it goes down the slope from on the street, you get a very different visual, right? So if you're looking at the top left image of A900, the building doesn't look all that massive. And then you go a little bit farther down the slope as these kind of terrace properties have this effect, and all of a sudden you start realizing the mass and the scale. And so now I'd like to kind of go into where areas of the design that I think could benefit from shifting of mass and scale, etc. And so if we wanted to keep the new addition of the garage and that new family room on the same level as the existing house, that could still be done. It just, you could, instead of having the master bedroom above the addition, it could be placed underneath the addition. If you look at A900, where you have the brick base of the building, with the use of some retaining walls and whatnot, you could absolutely nestle in a floor kind of underneath that garage area. For example, that's just a thought. That might create less of an intrusion if the second story is pushed back over the living area of the existing house, which could then look down into the backyard of the adjacent home. That is, I think, an analysis that's kind of going through my mind. Secondly, when I look at the entry of this house, and I look at the existing roof lines, and more specifically the fascia lines of the existing garage and the existing entry porch, I think if those fascia lines are continued along the proposed new addition, it would create a much more cohesive look and feel. They've of course created a higher ceiling in the family room that's being proposed, and so now all of a sudden the fascia lines do not match up. And I think this is one of those cases where you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have a massive home in a hillside area and then try to go for the high ceilings, etc. Compromises have to be made. This is what this board is all about, is at times for there to be compromises between the neighborhood and an applicant and a property owner. And so sometimes when no one is happy, it's a great compromise. And that's happened many, many times at this board. And I think this is one of those opportunities that should occur if the applicant and the ownership wants to go for such a bigger home. And as far as square feet are concerned, you got to make compromises. And so I'm not convinced that pushing the mass back over the existing home is the right solution. I think they're already proposing a basement. And as depicted on sheet A900, if that bedroom area, instead of it being above the family room, is moved below the garage, you could still get a lot of windows, both facing the street and on the side, and flood that space with light. It would not feel like a basement. And at the same time, you would then couple that with keeping the existing fascia lines of the existing roof. And then all of a sudden, you got your square footage, but you didn't compromise mass and scale. So that's kind of the direction I'm going in this. I think either way, it should be a return for redesign. But I think we need to give the applicant very concise direction. And so they could work and come back. But I'm not ready to just prescribe a condition and say, to work for them to work with staff, because I think what I'm proposing are ideas that will require some back and forth, and then of course a second go around with us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Minas, you're next.
Basically, I like the harmony of the style between the existing home and the addition. And I realize that with this pandemic situation, many professionals are working from home and they need larger spaces at home, offices to work from, and the need to expand their homes. And again, I'm a little bit puzzled about the zoning requirements with respect to the size of a building or house that one can design. Again, if the zoning allows a 4,700 square foot, say building on this particular lot with all the slope features and everything else, then of course it kind of contradicts with the compatibility. I mean, you may have a lot on a street that they're predominantly, say, 1,500 square feet, but you need to build, say, 3,000, and the zoning allows you to build 5,000. So what's the? I'm a little bit confused about the laws and rules and the professional architect should follow, and the compatibility. I mean, which one comes first? As far as this particular project is concerned, again, I also do not believe that pushing the building back would be feasible, because they're going to have to essentially move out of the house, because the roof of the house will be gone, and you cannot live in a house without a roof. So that's why I understand that they're pushing the building in the front yard. Except the only solution that I can really foresee for this particular project, if they still want to, build a house as big as they're planning to, as Mr. Simonian indicated, maybe sinking the entire addition one level down, having subterranean. I mean, so that you have the parking with the concrete floor going from the existing driver level, but the floor below that will become the living space below the garage, and then you can expand that, beneath the entire addition, and then so from street only one level building will be exposed, less massive, and with the same features that the existing house has. Maybe it'll be a compromise. Or if going subterranean is problematic, maybe they can reduce the size of the addition from say 1,400 to say 800, and build on the same area without altering the integrity and the condition of the existing house. That may, not be livable if they go over the house for the proposed addition. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Minas. Board Member Smith.
Thanks very much, Chair. So in looking at this project, I was very impressed with the staff report for a few things, particularly the recommendation that it be returned for redesigned, because I believe this project does need to be, unfortunately. I think I received 15 public comments against. That wasn't, I forgot to ask staff if that was the number of letters that were received, which seems like a lot. Some of them were very well considered. Others are regular homeowners just writing in. I have to say there's one thing I absolutely agree with the applicant about, which is the requirement for pavers. I'm not a fan of pavers. I think that they're a little bit too prevalent right now, and even though the design guidelines require them, I see his point absolutely that pavers wouldn't be appropriate here. That aside, it's what's required in the design guidelines. I heard the comment about the public and about someone having an agenda among the callers. The public is welcome to call in as often as they wish in this process, as I think all the board members and the staff understand. And public engagement is a crucial component of this process. So the fact that someone calls in often means that they're being politically efficient, not necessarily that the person has an agenda. I'm not defending any one person calling in or not, but I think bringing that up was sort of problematic. I have a number of things in my notes. I noticed that it was said more than once that this project won't seem that tall and large unless you're right in front of it. Unfortunately, that's how we evaluate design, is usually elevations. So I was a little disappointed with that comment. That's number 4. I have all these numbered. 1 second, please. So the hillside design guidelines under landscaping, it recommends under number F5 that you maintain existing trees. I didn't see that. Under C, the architectural concept, each building should have a governing architectural idea. And because this is an existing building in an existing neighborhood, it should be compatible with both things. I do not believe it is as proposed. And I think it could be absolutely changed to fit in a lot better. And the relationship to adjacent structures, that's under C3. It doesn't really relate, and the scale, proportion, massing, and so forth don't fit well. I see that that as proposed, it's more than 100% bigger than anything else in the neighboring area that was measured, it's pretty obvious to me that in applying the design guidelines, that isn't compatible. I would recommend, I had in my conditions before we received the calls, a condition to reduce the proposed size to be more consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, so that it would be compatible and in keeping. In the Hillside Development Review Policy, those issues are addressed, and the word shall is part of it. And shall means should or may, that it's mandatory, that it's an imperative command and a legal obligation. I think it would establish a bad precedent to approve this project as proposed. In looking at the plan, I see that it's just everything proposed is as tall as it can be and toward the front of the property. I see quite a big backyard, and I think it would be possible for the applicant to work with their architect to come up with a plan where that same leg were reduced, or wing was reduced in size, and it could be flipped and go in the backyard. Normally, it's not really encouraged that additions in established neighborhoods go in the front yard. It's a lovely property in a lovely neighborhood, and for this family to get more square footage, it's pretty standard practice that you would go toward the backyard, not toward the front yard. I saw no two-story buildings in that neighborhood, and I think it's absolutely possible, if the addition were more compatible with the neighborhood, more compatible with the house that's there, that it could be lower, farther back, reduced in size, mass, etc. I was listening to my fellow board member talking about how hard it is to balance zoning and design requirements. That's what we're here to do. You can't just go with what's legal per zoning. There are other requirements, and that's really central to what we're doing. So I was concerned to hear that, as if you're allowed to build it according to the zoning code, it must be okay in design review, and that's obviously not the case. I saw lots of things recommending that it just be outright, this project be outright denied, and unfortunately, or fortunately, we don't have the right to outright deny it. And I think it's appropriate to work with this applicant. It sounds like they've been working with the city for a long time, following the design guidelines, reading them yourselves, really studying them to understand what they mean and how something like this could better fit into the neighborhood without calling so much attention to itself would do so much for the homeowner, probably the neighbors, and how this would fit in to the neighborhood. I have tons of family, and to tell you the truth, unless it's a quick stay, they stay in a hotel. The fact that people have one or two artificial hips, I have some, and I can do some stairs, so I felt that was a little bit of an exaggeration. So I don't think this is unfixable whatsoever, but I think in our conditions, I think the city worked hard on the recommended conditions. We should absolutely add one to reduce the size of the proposed project to be more compatible with the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. For my comments, I'll largely echo my fellow board members. I also wanted to address a little bit of this question of the maximum zoning, and that's exactly what it is. It is a maximum. It is the absolute maximum. That doesn't mean that everything can be allowed up to that maximum. That is what we are here to adjudicate. And part of our charge is to blend these things into the neighborhood, to be respectful of those neighborhoods. And in this particular case, you know, similar to the comments that I made 2 weeks ago with the other property on this street, this is a neighborhood of one-story homes. And in a neighborhood of one-story homes and in a hillside neighborhood, we have to really make sure that we're doing our job carefully to adapt these new developments to their surroundings. It doesn't mean we have to oppose a second story. I'm not necessarily opposed to second stories, but they have to be done in such a way that it is respectful of the neighborhood, that it blends in properly. And in hillside neighborhoods, it must follow the topography. The topography of this particular site slopes from the lowest point of the southeast corner to the northwest. And yet the location of this proposal is on the southeast corner. It is not the correct location for it. I think Mr. Simonian had an excellent notion. I was thinking the same thing, either to make the addition below and build it down. That would be an appropriate solution that follows the topography, or perhaps some slight split level design or something like that. But in any case, it must be respectful of that. And I don't believe that this design does that. So I also want to be cognizant of the notion of size, because I think that several callers and Ms. Smith had made the comment that at the size being proposed, it would be significantly larger than the largest home in the neighborhood. Our charge is, again, to try to blend these things in. I'm not saying we can't allow more size. Of course, we can allow more size, but we have to find that balance. That is our job as adjudicators here, to help find that balance, to reach those compromises that Mr. Simonian addressed. So in my mind, I think that a condition to reduce the size would be appropriate. What that reduction is, I don't necessarily think we need to necessarily come to a definitive determination, but I think a condition that says you should reduce the size is also appropriate here. So with that, I think that we are all in alignment that this should be returned for a redesign. Staff did an excellent job analyzing this and coming up with the conditions that they provided. And I think that we're ready to move on for moving this forward. So Jay, do you want to have any questions for the board before we move?
I can read back what I heard and see where we have consensus. I think I've gotten a good sense of that. In general, the idea is that this two-story mass is not appropriate here. Two solutions were proposed. One is to remove the second floor. One is to put that floor area below grade, at least partially below grade. I want the board to know that we worked extensively with the applicant on that very issue. They did come up with some designs that didn't meet their interests, but now that the board has made this a condition, we can see if they find another solution, but we could definitely work on that, and they already have done some of the groundwork. Let me continue, sorry. There was an idea that any addition at the front, the fascia line, the height should kind of coordinate with the existing fascia line and wall heights of the existing house. Lower level, there was further support for subterranean. Board member Smith echoed the concept of the overall size of the addition. And there was, so basically we can be somewhat prescriptive here. There were other ideas about flipping the addition to the rear, which is something else we had discussed with the applicant. And we can continue that. There could be multiple solutions to the overall goal here, as you all know. Board member Welsh just mentioned the idea that any second story should follow the topography and be on the other side of the house. But I'm not sure that that will come to pass, but we'll work with the applicant to do that if they choose to move the addition around. And then making the reduction in size an actual condition. I don't know if the board wants to give us a rough percentage for that, or just see how it pans out depending on how they redesign this.
Yes, Board Member Simonian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Platt, for reiterating the conditions and, as you always do, putting them forward in an organized manner. I do support reduction in mass as a condition. However, I'm extremely hesitant in giving a percentage, as I have been hesitant in the past. I think it's a bad protocol. and bad procedure to do that. I think every applicant needs to work hard to come up with different ideas, different designs, and to work with staff. And once you get into a prescriptive percentage, you lose the spirit of creativity in architecture, which I'm wholeheartedly against. So I, for one, would not support or do not recommend supporting a certain percentage. But everything else Mr. Platt said, I think is spot on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I concur. I don't think we need to prescribe a percentage reduction in size. I just think we need to specify that we think that there should be a reduction in size. Oh, Jay, you're on mute.
My apologies. May I be recognized for just a minute?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bardini. We've already closed the public hearing, and at this point, it's pretty clear where the board is going here. So, okay. Jay, did you want to make any final comments before I ask for a motion?
No, I was just capping and was on mute. Sorry.
Okay. So, would somebody like to make the motion?
I'd like to move that this project gets returned for redesign with the conditions expressed by Mr. Platt. I would say reduce the size considerably and study the concept of flipping the addition to the rear yard.
Again, I'm uncomfortable with the word considerably. I think you say reduce size and mass, and let's see what they could do. But considerably is unacceptable from my point of view.
Well, board members, I'm curious if 115% larger than anything else in the neighborhood is too large, then I believe considerably is just a concept.
I disagree, Board Member Smith. I could design buildings that would fit in contextually beautifully.
Yes, lots of people could.
Or somebody big, but that is the art of an architect, and you cannot get in the way of that. So I do not support that.
Okay, so there is a motion, but if there's no second, this board member Simone, do you want to make a second motion?
So I assume that motion by Board Member Smith did not have a second. You were looking for another motion by me, Mr. Chair?
That is what it seems like is the case, yes.
I move to return the project for redesign as stated with the conditions by Mr. Platt, in addition to add a condition saying the house mass to be reduced.
Friendly amendment, could you make that mass and size? Because I think the size should be reduced as well.
Yes, mass and size.
I would add the caveat that if they were able to move the addition to the rear, the size would not have any, necessarily have any impact on the street or the neighborhood. I don't know that that's going to be one of their solutions. Bring that up to the board.
I think the applicant could certainly make their case for that, but you know. Okay, so Board Member Simone, do you want to make another comment?
Yes, I wanted to just echo what Mr. Platt said, and just so the public and other board members can understand my point of view and where I'm coming from. We have had scenarios where we've had families come in front of us that have had multi-generational ages of family living in the same household, and we've had grandma, grandpa, 4 or 5 children, and you have a house that's bursting at its seams, right? And so there's times when someone will add square footage to the back of the house on a one level, where you can't really see the mass and scale from the street, but they've compromised their backyard for square footage. And I think that's what Mr. Platt is referring to. And so that is my entire kind of premise with these kind of prescriptions. And I thought it was kind of important for us to state that if the applicant decides to move the mass and bulk to the rear, and in doing so still ends up with square footage that maybe Some level of the public might find too large. However, it's not visible from the street. Then that's another story, right? So I think we need to not prescribe and have the architect really work hard to try to create a solution that's acceptable to this board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, Mr. Platts, are you clear enough on all this direction that the motion as stands is okay?
Yes, I think so. We're good. We're good.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Simonian. Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Board Member Minas?
Yes.
Thank you, Board Member Simonian.
Yes.
Thank you, Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Thank you, and Chairperson Welch.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-0.
Okay, very good. So, Ms. Midas, we had deferred the minutes to this part of the meeting. Is there a report you can make?
I was going to jump in with that, and I may need some assistance from Board Member Smith to understand what the issue was. And let me just verify, because I didn't quite hear everything as clearly. We're talking about the conditions for 1580 Glenmont Drive. Is that correct? Okay, Vilya's shaking her head. And I believe Board Member Smith thought that the condition 1 and condition 2 negated each other. I don't believe that's the case, but so I'd like to explain why it was written the way it was. And if I'm wrong and there's something I'm missing, please, of course, let me know. The first condition relates to the board's decision to take the second floor mass and move it from the side of the house.
Mr. Platt or Mr. Chair, could someone point out which project's minutes we're referring to so I can follow along? Thank you.
This is for 1580 Glenmont, the one we just did 2 weeks ago, correct?
It's the house just up the street from this property we just discussed. So it's from January 14th. And it's in the package that's online with this evening's hearing. Are we okay to go forward, Mr. Simonian?
It's page 7 in the big packet that I have.
I've saved as the package into different sections, and so give me one moment. I'm getting there.
If you go to the interactive agenda, this would be item 3B under the interactive agenda for the approval of the minutes.
I see. So we're looking at 1580 Glenmont, and conditions number 1 say relocate the second floor to the east side of the house and place the second level deck at the west side.
Right.
And condition,
go ahead.
And condition number 2 states set the second floor back from the first floor as shown on the revised drawing presented at the DRB meeting.
So if this if any first floor areas are exposed rather than used as decks, they should be clad with metal. So if I'm not misunderstanding where we went, I thought there weren't going to be decks on the second floor.
No, there is a large deck on the second floor. Of the proposed deck floor mass. So there's a large deck. This stems from Board Member Simonian's concern. There was a section on the proposed design where there was an area of exposed first floor roof that didn't have a railing. So there was a question: is that a walkway? Is it a deck? Is it or is it roof? And the issue was, if it is not a deck or a walkway that needs to have a flat surface, there was the idea was to take the metal fascia that kind of spanned divided the first level and the second level, and to wrap that with a standing seam metal roof, the same material, so that it would kind of integrate the design of the second floor better. We don't know if that's going to happen in the revised design, that condition. So we made this kind of a conditional condition. And if it happens, then we need to do this. If it doesn't happen, then we just ignore it.
Thanks.
Yes, Board Member Smith.
Mr. Platt. So in reading it, I think it means rather than used as decks, maybe it should say rather than be used as decks. Maybe the word be is just what's missing there.
I believe it's grammatically correct. If you insist, we can add another word.
Rather than be used as decks.
I reiterate, I believe it's okay, but I'm happy to change it if the board would like me to.
I don't really care. I think it means roughly the same. So I think we understand what the intent was. Mr. Simonian, you were the one who was putting forward this. Does the condition as presented read okay for you? You're still on mute.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. It does, and I appreciate Mr. Platt reiterating the thoughts. And now I'm crystal clear that he understood my thoughts. So I move to approve the conditions as stated.
Well, we're only approving the minutes here to reflect what the decision was. So I'll take that as a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes by Board Member Simonian. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Minas. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Smith?
Aye.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Minas? And Chair Welch?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.